1. I work with an older man named Bob. He's about 70 years old and definitely should be retired at this point. Our owner hired him because they're best friends for like 40-something years to a host position. Bob and I are the only two full-time hosts. I absolutely hate him, and so does the rest of the staff. He is sexist, petty, throws tantrums, and is completely unable to do his job. I spend almost all of my shifts with him fixing his mistakes. He also cannot be fired because he's the owner's friend. Although I absolutely hate him for a multitude of reasons, too long to list in a single post, I'm going to post the most recent drama he's caused at work. At the very beginning of the day before we open, the servers polish and stock any remaining silverware from the night before. Then until close, the hosts are in charge of polishing and restocking the silverware for the servers. We also use a small supply we keep at the host stand to make individual rolls of silverware for less formal tables. At the end of the day, after we close, any silverware left over is racked and cleaned by the servers. That is how it has been done at this restaurant for over a decade. No one has had any problems with this system. Until Bob. Please note that the host keeps silverware stocked at the actual host stand for the convenience of certain sections, so servers do not have to walk almost to the back of the restaurant to reset their tables. Bob decides that servers are no longer allowed to take silverware from the host stand, because he has decided that would be for silverware rolls only. He promptly tells all the servers this, which they ignore. He also proudly advanced that he oh so graciously polished a rack of silverware for the servers, and had done them a huge favor. Bob absolutely knows this is part of our job description, so I have no idea why he said this. Then a server, R, kindly brings up a fully racked and clean supply of silverware for him to polish and put away. Bob freaks on him, telling R to take it back to the kitchen because it's not his job to polish the rack, and he's already rolled enough silverware, therefore he didn't need more silverware. Bob also states that it's not his job to supply silverware to the servers, and told R to do it himself. R then asked Bob if he enjoyed being paid to do nothing, among other things. Bob went crying off to our GM, this man is 70 plus, remember, about being picked on and bullied by R, and how he's not going to polish the silverware, and basically stating that he's not going to do his job. Now we have notices at literally every wait station and kitchen notice board explaining the system of cleaning silverware. R was not written up, and everyone got a hearty laugh out of what he said to Bob. Bob called out today, claiming to be sick, but we all know he's just sulking. 2. So I worked with his breakfast franchise downtown over the summer. It was pretty disorganized, but I worked with a friend and it could be fun. One Saturday morning, busiest and hottest day of the summer, during the beginning of a 10-hour double, 4 girls walked in. They looked like trashy off-brand Cardi B's with attitude. One server had the section they sat in, but he said he didn't want to serve them as they probably were the bad type. I said I'd take them since you can't judge a book by its cover. I later came to regret that decision. I got them water and asked to take their order. 3 of them weren't ready and told me to come back. The 4th one looked like she woke up on the wrong side of the bed and ordered me to take her order. She wanted an appetizer of chicken wings. She said she wanted chicken wings and scowled when I didn't know what that meant. I asked before putting in her order and told her we don't do that since it comes pre-packaged and ready to cook with a mix of flats and drums. But before I finished talking, she immediately asks to see my manager, who told her the same thing. And I take drink orders. When I get back with drinks, she demands to know where the food is. I never put the order in since she talked to the manager and assumed she didn't want them anymore. She said if it's not mostly flats, she'd send it back to the kitchen. She also demanded that they come out before the entrees, like, duh, it's an appetizer. She ate 2 plates and demanded they be free because they weren't to her liking. The girls ordered their food, and she requested a specialty drink which takes a while to make, so I couldn't put in everyone's order, plus I had other tables. She wasn't happy about the 5-minute wait. When she got her food, she threw it on the floor because the broccoli was raw. We steam our vegetables, but she didn't say she wanted it sautéed when I asked. She asked me if I was new because I wasn't very good at my job, and she said it wouldn't be long before I was fired. I was really over her and her friends since they just let her be rude without telling her to chill. While dealing with her, I lost a table, since I was too preoccupied with her BS to look at the tablet, and they changed table sections. Still, I smiled, got them their many rounds of drinks, and tried to be as nice as I could, even though I knew she wasn't giving a tip at that point. They were there for over an hour, so I was just waiting to leave their check. Every time I passed their table, she looked irritated, even if I wasn't greeting them and just getting their orders. When I was getting dishes from another table, she called out and told me they wanted their check. I already had it ready in my pocket, but my hands were full, and no one else was ready. I collected the cups from their table and told her I'd be back with her checks. She instead decides to throw her money on top of the dirty dishes I'm holding, and loudly says I'm not getting a tip, so I need to bring back a receipt. I was so fucking mad, but I had to keep the smile up. I had to get her cash out of a pile of spit-out food in the dish room. My manager said I should have just thrown it out with the food. After that, I returned with the actual check, and she was mad because I handed her the wrong one, as if there's not 3 others I had to give out, and asked for her change. My restaurant doesn't keep a lot of change, so we just round to the nearest dollar. I gave her the cash, and she screamed at me over the 4 cents she was owed. I ran around looking for pennies as she continued to berate me. Altogether, their bill was around $200, and I made $9 in tips from the other 3, so everyone kinda sucked. I was so glad when they left. She also made a mess between the spilled food and her drink, and I had to clean, low on bussers, but I was just relieved. My boss felt bad and gave me a free meal for dealing with them. I really hate people, but I love the money. 3. This happened a couple years back when I was working 2 jobs. A little bit of background. I used to work at a family-owned pizza and pub joint that was directly adjacent to a rather corporate and bougie breakfast place. A lot of the back-of-the-house staff worked at both the pizza and the breakfast place, and I knew them well from being the bartender at the pizza place. I was really cool with most of them because when I would bartend, I would always hook up an extra shift drink out of my tips, and they would look the other way when the back of the house would bring their own alcohol in. Our head chef at the pizza place, let's call him C, was also the head chef at the breakfast place, so C had a little pull around both spots. So, some personal shit happens, and all of a sudden I need to find a second job. Here's where my relationship with the kitchen is important. It was extremely difficult to get hired at the bougie breakfast place. They had almost no turnover, and I knew this firsthand, as some of the servers from bougie breakfast would stop by my bar after their shifts and get apps and drinks. For the most part, they were pretty cool, and I went to high school with one of them. Anyway, I'm talking to the servers from bougie breakfast and asked if they're hiring as I needed a second job. They said they just had a server move away and they got excited at the idea of me working with them. The excitement dissipated when the girl I knew from high school, let's call her A, said, "Yeah, but Linda, bougie breakfast GM, doesn't really hire male servers. And your beard will be a huge issue." I say that's okay. I figure I'll try and use C as a reference and see what happens. Can't hurt to apply. C gets me an interview. I shave my beard. A part of my soul dies with it. And I nail the interview and get the job. I'm certain I wouldn't have been hired without C's recommendation, so you better believe I had a case of beer hidden for him that night at the pizza place. Now I'm working doubles every day, but it really wasn't that bad. The bougie breakfast place was very corporate, and that took some adjusting, but I was a professional, and it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. I made my way through training and quickly adapted to the culture. The serving staff there was all very kind, as even the servers I didn't know accepted me, mostly because I needed money and would take any shift available. This included hosting shifts. I'm not above working any job. Linda, the GM, however, was not too fond of me. I have a big personality and I like to have fun, and Linda was obviously wary of how warmly the front and back of the house warmed up to me. Linda didn't like me from the start. Like she wrote me up in my first week for having facial hair when I shaved that morning and had a little 1 p.m. shadow. I grow a damn good beard, but no big deal. I started shaving in the back room mid-shift to try and keep a good first impression. So one day I'm covering for one of the hostesses. Now every morning we'd have a team meeting where we would review the specials with the kitchen and go over any items that may be limited or 86 that day. Our morning meeting goes about the day and we're told we have everything. My only restaurant experience was from the pizza place, and I had no fucking clue what a secret shopper was, nor did I really care. Also, no one bothered to tell me that was a thing. Had they told me, it honestly would not have made any difference. But I guess at the bougie breakfast you wanted to get a secret shopper, as if you got 100 on your report, the owners gave you a $50 bonus. Super cool of them. So I'm hosting, and I take a to-go order for some dish with steak and eggs. I send it through just fine, the customer pays over the phone. Less than 30 seconds later, C sends someone from the kitchen up front to let me know that they don't have steak that day, and they can substitute another meat or the customer can order something else. Honest mistake, whatever. I try calling the customer and it goes to voicemail. Try a couple more times and was not able to get a hold of him. Left a message. We were super busy and the kitchen is backed up. I'm still new and very nervous that I'm going to get written up again for this. So the customer arrives and I told him I'm very sorry that we don't have steak, and he sees that I tried to call him. He's very chill and says, "That's okay, can you bring me the same thing with sausage and bacon?" A wave of relief comes over me as double meat prices out the same as one premium meat, so I can adjust the original ticket to the kitchen without needing a new payment. I run to the kitchen to tell C about it, and he said it'll be on the fly. The customer is so cool about the whole thing that I wanted to do something nice for him, so I asked if he'd like anything complimentary to drink, and he said a cup of coffee would be great. So I ring up a cup of coffee, and I don't have cash on me hosting that day, so I just pay with my credit card. Yes, I paid out of my own pocket for the coffee, with my credit card which has my name on it. I rang the coffee up as a split ticket under the customer's name. Obviously, I tendered it separately. I gave him the coffee and say, "This is on Bougie Breakfast. We really appreciate your understanding and patience." Customer gets his food in record time and he leaves with a smile. I had no idea he was a shopper until I came into work the next day and everyone is whispering about me. Now A comes up to me and it goes something like this. "Do you remember when we didn't have steak last week and you took a carryout?" "Yeah, I do. Why, what's up?" "Well, the customer was a secret shopper." "Okay." "Did you give him a free cup of coffee?" "Yeah." "Linda read the report and she's pissed. She's going to call you into her office and you're probably getting fired for stealing." So I start to laugh and A thinks I'm not taking her seriously. I let her know that I paid out of pocket for the coffee and she gets why I'm laughing now. Linda calls me into her office shortly after and makes me read the report. Specifically, she makes me read the part where the customer indicates that I said the coffee was on Bougie Breakfast. She asked if I had anything to say for myself, and why shouldn't she fire me right then and there? I ask Linda if she checked the ticket. Linda makes a weird face and asks why she should check the ticket. I let her know that I didn't steal anything, I paid for the coffee myself, and if she pulls the ticket she can see my name with the timestamp. Linda pulls the ticket, and I've never seen someone so disappointed that their employee was telling them the truth. She offered no apology, and I replied with a shit-eating grin. She didn't talk to me much after that, and I got poached into an office job by a regular shortly after. 4. I worked at a casual upscale restaurant in British Columbia. I was there for a year. I mentioned BC because employees get great support from the Provincial Employment Standards Act, ESA. An employee must be written up 3 times before there can be a serious threat of termination. The write-up has to be co-signed for it to count. In December, for example, I showed up to work 30 minutes late. It was completely unlike me, and after the shift I signed a write-up. No problem. It was my only documented transgression while working there. I feel like now is the right time to tell you guys that 2019 was not kind to me. I was attacked and robbed mid-year, court case ongoing, and have been attending 2 kinds of therapy for my PTSD, and my beloved mother passed near the end of the year from terminal cancer. Her diagnosis came about a month after I was attacked. I tell you this for context, not for sympathy. Nobody at my work even remotely knew about what I was going through. I kept everything completely compartmentalized. What I'm trying to say is my professionalism was not affected. Anyway, with the arrival of 2020, management decided to really tighten the reins. They were cracking down on everything. With all that going on, my GM and I decided I should take January off. Mom's birthday would have been mid-January. Upon my return, I was inexplicably held to an extremely intensive standard. Turns out giving me that time off put the restaurant through a little strain. Okay, not my fault. I was told it was totally fine and even preferable for me to take the vacation. My first Monday back was the first snow day in Vancouver where transit was actually running. I arrived at work 4 minutes late, but was the second person in the building after the bartender. My first and second days back I performed well enough to get decent tips, but management could tell I was stressed, so they put me on probation. A conversation for which there was no record and no co-signage. Furthermore, according to the ESA I mentioned earlier, you can't just randomly put an employee with only one write-up on probation. At the end of the meeting, my GM said, "See you Saturday." Because that was my usual schedule, Monday, Tuesday, Saturday. Unfortunately, a new manager had been hired in to do scheduling and gave me shift outside my availability, which I missed. A head office manager calls me on Friday, and when he realizes I don't know I was scheduled, again outside of my usual schedule, he says, "Don't worry about it, my friend. If your boss needs you, she'll call you in." Here's where shit goes down. GM calls. I say, "I was called off by an HO manager." She hangs up on me. I figure out a ride to work and text her that I can be there in 15. She tells me no, just come in for a meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow comes. I tell her I'm having severe anxiety and wish she could call or text so I understood what I was walking into in order to help manage my anxiety. And I get this text. "Your final paycheck is in the mail. No severance." No explanation, no legal justification, and apparently no severance pay. I ask to be contacted so the terms of my firing can be properly explained to me. One of the top dogs, a man we'll call Kevin, calls me a few days later. He says, "You're an employee, not our emotional responsibility. We don't care if you signed the warning. If the GM says she spoke to you and there's no record, it still goes on your file. If we terminate another employee for missing shifts 7 times in 2 months, that has nothing to do with you because that's our discretion. Speaking about it's actually a breach of the other person's employee confidentiality. Look, I'm sorry your mom died and you were assaulted, etc. But that's not our problem. Take a look in the mirror and take responsibility for your trauma. Our only duty to you is to pay you, if you show." As you can tell, Kevin is lovely. I've filed with the government and will be demanding severance for wrongful termination. To clarify, Kevin's statement about my co-worker missing 7 shifts and the unclear wording of that portion of my tale, allow me to explain. My co-worker missed 7 shifts in 2 months. With the weak excuse, "My dog is sick," she was given pass after pass after pass, until they finally started writing her up for her inability to show up to work. 6 days before I was put on probation. This other girl was finally fired. The ESA says that employees must be held to the same standard. Obviously, that is so everyone understands the terms of employment and what behaviors are acceptable, and which ones are grounds for termination. The fact that she was allowed to completely just not show up for work 6 times and not be terminated is a completely different standard than the one I was held to. When Kevin mentioned this in his statement, Timesh the used excuse employee confidentiality as a way to cover his ass for inconsistent and unfair treatment of employees. I hope this clarifies things. 5. So I work for a place that's a cafe during the day and a nightclub at night. It's an adventure, and I love every minute of it. Sundays are insane. Usually the Saturday night close is rough. but I've learned to expect that, and I won't speak badly about those that served until 3 a.m. and just were too tired to restock some napkins. I get it, dude. Sunday is also walk-in 10 to 16 top day. It never fails. We get large groups back to back. We had a 15-person table come in, and my co-worker, Sam, name changed, had it put in his section, and it took up every table he was assigned. Sam is a great server. He's been in the industry for years and knows his stuff. He was attentive, constantly giving refills, making them laugh, etc. As things come to an end, people began leaving, so Sam asked if the check was all in one. Everyone at his table just looked around at each other, and it was obvious that they had not planned on whether one person was footing the bill, or if everyone was going separate. Half the table had left at this point, so one of the older gentlemen said, "I guess it's all on one." Sam took him the bill, and after they cashed out, they quickly left. This table left him $7 on a $240 check. Sam was devastated. They had been there through the entire lunch rush, so he missed out on a lot of turnaround that made the rest of us some really good money. He told me that he was counting on today so he could make his rent, and now he wasn't sure what to do. He was going to ask to work a double after already working a double the day prior. Side note, I get that people should manage money accordingly, but I don't know his personal life, and some of us live day by day. I was there recently, I get it, zero judgment. I felt so bad for him that I printed off another copy of the check and put $40 into a book with it and stacked it by some books by the register. I pretended that I had lost a signed receipt and was going through them next to him. I casually opened one with his name on it and said, "Sam, you left money in here, you idiot," and handed it to him. I pretended to find mine and casually walked away. He came up to me and said he was super confused because he had only had one book at the table, and neither was this one. I just looked at him and said, "Some things aren't worth investigating." I'm telling this story because I want everyone to know that there are good people in the world. We will all get that shitty table of Karens or a bad night. But I'm always looking out for my coworkers. I'm a strong believer in treat the way you want to be treated. And I'm hoping my message will inspire others to do a little extra side work, or bring in some snacks to share during the rush. Little things go a long fucking way in this rough business. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates number 86. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. It always feels nice when I get to this point, when I'm doing the weekend recording. 2 down, I've got 1 to go. Neckbeards this week, by the way. I've been quite lucky with the neckbeard stories, so another one on Sunday. And I know there's just one recording session ahead of me. Then the more relaxed part of the video making process, which for me involves either a kind of Red Bull or Rockstar or a cup of tea. I actually did make tea tonight while I was working, or a cup of tea and snacks while I put on the big fat quiz or QI or some comedy concert or a streamer or something. You might want to check out Shigar Gaming Central. He's actually been helping me get through a lot of recording and editing sessions recently. And I just mellow out, get work done. I don't rush myself anymore. I used to think, right, if I push on, I get this and that done, then I can write something. You know what? No, you're working so you can get the weekend off, and that's enough. Take your time and hopefully avoid making too many mistakes. Now, of course, mistakes will creep through from time to time, but that's unfortunate and sadly kind of unavoidable when you do daily content. It doesn't mean I don't still get grumpy with myself, mind you. But no, this isn't a video about mistakes. This is a video about relaxing mellow Hellfreezer. And I also want to take this opportunity to say that even though numbers are overall down with the channel, which is always disheartening, they can go up because they've went down and up before. I'm very grateful to all of you and everyone who's stuck with me and all the new people coming in. We're still getting new people in. Not as many as we used to, but we're still getting new people in. And that you're all just watching the content, these things I make, and I genuinely put my heart and soul into them, so it means a lot to me when I see how much you guys love them. And I recently relaunched the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring, and I've been genuinely touched that people are buying and wearing my merchandise more than ever, because Quite frankly, it's a better store than I was using before. And everything's, it's actually going quite well. So I'm just reminding myself to be grateful that even though I want things to grow and I want numbers to go back up and everything, that I'm actually very grateful and happy for everything I currently have. And I'm probably going to go before I start crying. Okay, with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.